Hello fans of Marvel Heroes, my name is Wilfred and welcome to my channel. If you find this guide useful, check out the link below at the description. There are many more guides for you to watch. Today let's talk about when to gear for summon allied damage, but before that my apologies for this entire setup because my recording software after the patch just doesn't work on full screen mode. But at least I'm trying to do videos for you guys while something get fixed some days later. Now, in the past when I mentioned not all heroes, not all summoners need to gear for summon allied damage, I think that caused a lot of curiosity among some of you, wondering why some heroes, why some summoner just wouldn't make sense to gear for summon allied damage, and so on and so forth. So I like to use Ultron as an example because also I'm going to be a guide for Ultron, and to see for Ultron when to really gear for summon allied damage. I'm going to share with you how, and part 1 of the video is to share the information with you just in the event whereby you do not want to see all the numbers flying around and say, well, I just take your words for it. So part 1 is for you. Part 2 though is going to be a deep dive into my spreadsheet and to share with you how I derive all these numbers. All right. Now how we do this is this. I'm using an Ultron that is being, I've already made up my mind. It's going to be a ranged, hybrid, physical and energy heroes. And I also would like to add in Summoner as a fun kind of build and so on. And I would like to know for my Ultrons, as and when I gear for the hero damage versus the pet damage, by the way, those are mutually exclusive, how am I going to gain in terms of the performance wise? So I'm using a gear hero. I'm using I've spent about 6,655 Omega point to get him to a little bit at least a bit more geared, so as to make my analysis a little bit more meaningful. And in as much as possible, I pick those nodes that will benefit him as a ranged kind of a heroes and also as a summoner as well. And in my analysis, not only do I take into consideration of the rank, because usually in the past I assume only 20 ranks and just to analyze one power versus the other, but now I can't because this is a lot more complex. So I'm incorporating ranks inside. Not only that, I'm incorporating the crit and brutal chance as well as the crit and brutal damage inside as well, because hero and pets are two different kind of ball games here. The heroes are affected by the damage rating, crit and brutal damage rating, while for the pet is summon allied damage. And both of them share something called crit chance as well as brutal chance, so making the analysis even more difficult. So now I'm using the two scenarios here. One is I turn on the Thor as well as the Winter Soldier hero synergy, giving me the 6% hero damage overall to my power, and that is one scenario. Another scenario is that I'm using magic as well as Rocket Raccoon as the hero synergy, giving me the 10% pet damage, and I run it through the system and let the game tell me what kind of numbers I'll get from it. So to give you an example, I'm going to toggle to the game right now and to share with you what exactly I'm doing with the Ultron. So now my Ultron is geared, Omega points being spent like I mentioned, and I look at all these numbers here because all this will be the end result after factoring in all this a damage rating and so on. And I take down all these numbers here, some of which will be like a summon. So for example, the drone itself, this power is being affected by the summon allied damage, of course. And to model this actually require a little bit of art, because you need to observe the drones. They have about 5.5 second cycle in completing certain moves. Usually they do 2 slash, that means 4 hits, 1 launch and 1 sweeping strike as well. So that's normally 1 cycle, but if you look at the drone enough, sometimes it does a little bit more, a little bit less. So but on average those will be the number that you're looking for. And also another word of warning, this game is of course full of bugs sometimes, and even some of the tooltips will tell you like energy damage up to 197,000, 200,000 around there. Damage has been increased by 59%. A bonus is equal to 25% of your summon allied damage. So you intuitively thought, wow, okay, that's fine. This already incorporated inside. So in my analysis, I look into 197, 987 will do. But actually the answer is now, just to give you an example, if I put in magic as well as Rocket Raccoon. Okay, so now if you look at the power, it says that wow, damage has been increased by 61%. which is correct, of course, because Magic and Rocket Raccoon give me 10% pet damage that will translate to 2.5% over the 59%, give me 61.5%. But you look at the energy damage, it is not, it's still the same. So the damage has not been increased by this much. This is just the damage before the bonus being factored in. So tooltips sometimes can be very confusing. And also, I'll talk a little bit more about it on the part 2. You can't just increase it 197 by 61.5%. It doesn't work that way. Remember in one of my videos talking about the damage rating and so on, this is addition to whatever damage you have. So for this particular power, you have the damage rating, you have the energy base, you have the energy damage rating, you have the range base, range damage rating, and then plus another 25% of the summon ally damage would be your overall buff to this power. So something like that, I've done the heavy lifting for you guys, but just to give you an appreciation of what goes on behind the scene. And just going back to the spreadsheet itself, so over here, I'm also looking at the absolute performance gain because, as I gear my hero, as I select my Omega point, no doubt my hero damage output and the pet damage output is not going to be the same. So I can't really compare apple to apple. What I can do though is that I put 6% of hero damage and look at the absolute performance gain across my entire hero and so on and so forth for the pet as well. I always look into absolute gain, not the percentage, because if the gain versus a large chunk of hero kind of like damage output, it may seem small, but then then the pet I do not know how much it is. So I need to make sure that I'm comparing something that's similar, not just being colored by the fact that I'm picking certain gear or certain Omega system. So absolute number, all right? Now, after running through the analysis, what have I discovered? What I've discovered is that for 6% of hero damage being injected into my Ultron, my numbers, everything will increase, and I run it through the crit chance and crit damage rating and so on and so forth, and it gives me a gain of 14,776. These are just a score, you can think about it that way. It's an overall DPS gain. So per percentage of hero damage, I'm getting 2,463 as a score. Compared to pet damage, I inject 10% pet damage into my Ultron. I absorb all the power that's being increased, augmented with with all the crit chance and so on and so forth. I'm gaining 9,608. So per percentage of the pet damage, I'm getting 961. What it really tells me is that for my Ultron now, bear in mind this is only for Ultron. You can't apply it for every hero because every summoners they are different. All right. So now 2.56 is the number. It's a magic number. If I want to compare between the damage percentage versus the summon ally damage percentage, give you an example. If I have artifact that has 44% of summon ally damage, like the portal for the summoner, you can exchange it using the armor currency. And that 44%, you can divide that with 2.56, will give you the equivalent of hero damage compared to another artifact that may provide you with just about that. So you can compare in that sense. So how do you convert the damage rating into damage percentage? It's divided by 40. So, if you have X amount of the damage rating divided by 40 will give you a percentage, multiplied by 2.56 would then use to compare with the summon ally damage. But I take it one step further for you guys. 1% of summon ally damage actually worked out to be 80 crit damage rating. Part 2 of the video, I'll show you how, but now you just have to take my word to it. This is beautiful because 80 crit damage rating is actually 1% of crit damage rating, because divided by 80 become crit damage rating percentage. So compared to a gear that has say 800 crit damage rating will give you like 10% versus another 10% kind of summon ally damage. That's how to do the calculation between the two. And for Ultron again, if you look at the crit now, bear in mind that I can't use the crit rating here because my Ultron could be different from your Ultron. Your Ultron may have the crit higher or lower than mine. But I'm just looking at the 1% crit. If I like to increase a 1% crit chance, it is somewhat equivalent to 6.4% summon ally damage. Again, I'm using this to compare gear that I may need to look into the crit itself. So that's just for my personal comparison. But you can sort of get a sense about, when you compare gears for Ultron, that's what you need to look for. How do you put all these things into practice? Now, give you one example. If you look at the Power Cosmic, which is a grade 70 legendary, almost like free because you only use the Cosmic World Stone to exchange for it, versus a Trident, grade 70, 300 Odin mark. So how do you compare between the two? Now, the developer will tell you that Power Cosmic is as good as a grade 80, but it's not. It's just somewhere in between 70 and 80. So they compare the two. Power Cosmic gives you 1,500 damage rating versus the Trident damage rating 500. So you know that Power Cosmic already has 1,000 advantage versus the Trident, only for the damage rating part, which convert to 25% hero damage, right? So now, but then on the other hand, Trident has 50% summon ally damage. Summon ally damage divided by the 4 point something that I show you in this, divided by the 2.56 in the previous slides, would give me 19 or 20%. So you know how to compare the 20% kind of hero damage versus the 25% gap that we have seen. So if you look at the Power Cosmic just side by side, looking at the 1,500 damage rating on the Power Cosmic versus the Trident that has 50% summon ally damage, 500 damage rating, you know that the gap is already 5% down from the hero point of view. All right, so that's how you use it to compare. And but then don't forget, Power Cosmic has +2 to all attribute. +2 to all attribute is actually pretty decent. It gives me 14% of hero damage because it gives me the either strength or energy, and also plus fighting give you 3% of it. Plus strength give you 4%. So that's how you deal with all these numbers. And then you have the pet damage as well, because +2 intelligence give you 8% of pet damage, and vice versa, a little bit of a crit and brutal to it. But all in all, you're talking about there's a gap already 5%. There's another gap that is from the +2 side of it. But of course, if you look at the Trident, it does give you 500 damage rating. 500 crit hit rating. That the Power Cosmic does not seem to have, but Power Cosmic does have 60 crit hit rating from the +2 to attributes. So net you're talking about maybe 2% of crit and so on versus all the other of the stat that you have. So I still think that the Power Cosmic is going to be better compared to Trident, even if you are doing a summoner build. So that's my take to it, and that's consistent with a lot of my findings as well. For this sort of hero like Ultron and Magic. But if you look at say Trident 80, now Trident 80 is a little bit different because Trident 80 is really overpowering for the summoner. Check this out. Power Cosmic give you 1,500 hero damage, but Trident already give 1,000. So the difference is already down to 500 hero damage percentage, which is roughly 500 hero damage rating, which is roughly about 12.5%. But the really great thing about Trident is that 100% summon ally damage. Now that is massive because that is converted to about 39% hero damage. So the gap now become 26.5% if you just look at those stats between the two. Now even with you have the all stat to it, +2 to all stats and so on, you are looking at 14% hero, 8% pet. So I would say the pet would become somewhat less than 4%, 3% maybe. So added together is 70% from the +2 to all attribute versus the 27%. So it's about 10% damage rating down. But the great thing about the Trident is also the 1,000 crit hit rating that really obliviate of course the Power Cosmic in the sense. But the gap, like I said, is not going to be that great, I think, compared to what you're paying, because Power Cosmic to me is a free legendary, while for Trident you need 1,000 OD marks. Not many people can afford that. I personally would like to devote that for some of the summoner that really can benefit the most from it, like Loki, like Iceman, like Rocket Raccoon. But at least the comparison is there for you to see. Now what about the Apollo versus the Trident? When it comes to the two of them, you see the Trident Apollo actually is very, very similar. 1,200 damage rating versus 1,000 damage rating. 1,200 crit hit rating versus 1,000 crit hit rating. So that part is already quite narrow, quite kind of comparative. The edge of the Apollo is not really that great, but Trident, the 100, like I said, the 100% summon ally damage translate to quite a fair bit, like close to 40% of the hero damage. So that again is a gap that's just too wide. I mean, it's not even something that you can close it by a mile. So again, Trident would win in against the Apollo, at least from where I see it. All right. So that is the just some idea thinking behind it. But again, sometimes when you want to play this game, you want to be flexible as well. The gap, I guess, is not going to be that huge, but it's still there. But picking a Trident means that you have to do a summoner mode, build. But picking a Trident. Picking a Polo or even Power Cosmic, you can quite nicely switch between the two, because for raid wise you may want to go pure range because that gives you probably a higher potential. You can see it later on in the part 2 of the video when I go through the mathematics. The range power is pretty fantastic as well. So again, it's something that whether you want to fully invest in one build or actually you want the flexibility of doing two builds, and the choice is really yours. Last but not the least, let's take a look at the blessing itself. Now we have the new blessing, 15% summon ally damage will translate to about 5.86 of hero damage using the formula 2.56, the card trade-off, versus the 300 damage rating, the range power will translate to 75% already. So if you just look at the damage rating itself, the low key is already better. And of course, also think about the brutal strike rating will actually make more sense, scale better with the hero side of it, so it even make the 300 damage rating to range power more awesome. The overall output, like I always say, is a normal damage rating multiplied with the crit damage and brutal damage with the chance to it, so it scales much better in terms of the 300 damage rating as well. So something for you to think about. I hope it's useful, at least put something into practice. So all in all, in summary, what have we learned from this is that it really is no one size fits all. Unfortunately, this game is not intuitive for you to tell, like, should you be picking the hero side or should you be taking the pet side, what gear it is. But I mean, you can see that I think when in doubt, always pick the hero side for heroes such as Ultron, or Magic. But if you look at some legendary that's so obviously overpowering, like the Trident, then of course it makes sense to abuse the system a little bit. And so just remember, like I always said to you all, I think veterans heard it thousands of times, but new player, just remember for the pets, only the crit chance and brutal chance go into pet, not the damage rating, not the crit and brutal damage rating go into pet. So just remember that. Summon ally damage is to affect the pet. However, there are some power within the hero itself. Himself, herself may be benefited from the summon ally damage. So also may take note of that as well. Okay, and so I mean, trade-off is a little bit tedious. Only if you want to substitute, like how much of it you are gaining and so on. But in reality, I think even if you haven't really gone into the number itself, even if I don't intend to do a video for every single summoner because it's very, very time consuming. It took me about 6 hours just to look into all this number, put up all the power pad and so on. But all you need to do is observe the powers that you have. Like for example, if you look at Ultron and Magic, there aren't many powers that's been buffed by summon ally damage. There aren't really. And also, if you look at Ultron and Magic, it's been constrained by something called the command for Magic, bandwidth for Ultron. So there, there's not a lot of pawns you can invest inside the summoner tree as well. Unlike say Loki, there's a lot of power you can put a lot of power point into the summoner tree, and even look at the main spender. The contribution of summon ally damage is so huge towards the main spender, making it even beyond like a basic power. It's like a god power for Loki. And if you look at Rocket Raccoon also, the whole entire tree, all the turrets, Groot and so on, they're all benefited by the summon ally damage, and it's all within one tree that you can just max it, dump a lot of points to it. Likewise was for Iceman as well. So heroes like that, very comfortably you can throw in summon ally damage to the hero, and the hero will be awesome. For heroes such as Ultron and Magic, you look at it, you already know that, there's a lot of constraint, there aren't many power that can buff by summon ally damage, so you need a more balanced approach, and that's what I'm trying to help you out here. But also remember, sometimes you need to be, flexible as well. Syncing all the gears in the summon ally damage means that you can only play one build. All right, so that's pretty obvious. So now I hope this part 1 of the video is useful for those of you who like some insight, as in what kind of behind the scene mathematics I do before I do a guide on heroes, whether I should advise you all on to use the whether you use summon ally damage or not. I usually have gone through some of this like really tedious analysis, but so that's all part 1. Part 2 is going to be on the mathematics behind it. All right. On to the part 2 of the video is for me to share with you how I come about with the mathematical modeling and to give you the information as you've seen in part 1 of it. And so normally when I analyze a hero, I look into the power at rank 20, just looking at the hero design perspective. But for Ultron, I can't because it's rather complex. You have the hero damage as well as the pet damage that may also affect the hero damage as well. So with that kind of analysis, the best is really look into the end result, which is looking at the gear heroes and look at the rank as well. So the analysis will take into consideration of the rank of the of all the chance as well here and there. So now so what I've done is that I look into the hero itself. So I look at all this power, this baseline before I put the hero synergy inside. So I look into all this power and then I look into attack and so on and so on and so forth, and I translate to this Google sheet here. And so the precise beam is the main spender. As always, it's going to be the highest, one of the highest DPS. But don't forget to discount it a little bit because you can't keep it up 100% of the time. Sometimes you need to do other power that would cause you animation. Legacy may play a part as well. So all in all, I usually take about 40% discount on the main spender just to be on the safer side rather than take it on the full, because it's just not realistic in that sense. And as for the drones, just remember to observe within the 5.4 second what the drone does, the strike, the slash, the sweep, as well as the launch, how often they do it, and so on and so forth. So add them together and assign a so-called attack speed through a cycle of it. You will gain some kind of DPS on that as well, and so on and so forth. You work it through it. And there are some red color ones. Those are the power that I did not pick for this build. I'll tell you why. Because like Operation Irradiate, those are weakened power. Weakened power usually they're not great in DPS, even without going through a number. I know it. But anyway, the number shows is actually rather behind. It's like 5 times behind. So why take it? The encephalopin is very interesting because on its own is rather low. But then if you do not take the summoner build and you actually use it as a specialization, it's actually being augmented and buffed by 400%. And with that, then the number become very, very fantastic. Look at DPS wise, it's already like really is higher than the kind of pet as well. And not only that, I mean, this is just the DPS only taking into consideration of the normal damage as well as the rank. But if you buff it by the crit as well as brutal, as well as the crit brutal damage rating as well, the number looks a little bit differently, of course. And you look at this this encephalopin after it's being buffed is about close to 300,000 DPS, and the drones will only give you 200,000. Now, of course, the drone doesn't only give you this; it gives you this one as well, because you can detonate that as well, but detonation is only 1 rank to it. It doesn't really do a lot of damage. So it's only 259 versus 299. So you know that this one wins against the 2 powers here. But you always would say that, well, Operation Swarm is being buffed a little bit with the with summon ally damage, 25% of it. So wouldn't this one actually become better for summoner? But then again, if you gear for range, you do not need to spend your precious Omega points into, or even the gear into summon ally damage. You can buff this one even better. So all in all, I would say that the range build probably would be the stronger one, but with good reason as well, because the summoner build has pet that help you a ton. All these utility come with a cost. At least that's how I see it, and that's why for my Ultron I'm having 2 build. One is the pure range build for raid, another one is the summoner build for me to play some of the harder content. And whatever I gear, I would like to gear for these 2 at the same time. But I use the Omega system as well as healer synergy to augment my my summoner versus the pure range kind of damage. All right, so hope that makes sense to you. And this is the so-called signature. And one thing to note though, you may observe that this 2 is same. Now, why is it the same? Now the reason why it's the same is that for Operation Swarm, it is always crit, so I have to buff it when I calculate the DPS already. So the fact that this power, this damage is already have to take into consideration of the crit damage rating. Not only that, but also the brutal chance as well as brutal damage rating that will make it even more awesome. So all in all, this power is the one that is to be for the Operation Swarm. Alright, so now add those together, but of course do not add these three because I don't pick these three power. Add all together will be my baseline after I discount the main spender as well. And the baseline is about 1 million DPS, whatever it means. Now, but that's only one side of the story. But another one that I did mention about is that some of the tooltip may not be correct. Now, how do I find out about that? I think I showed it to you beforehand already. But I think just now I show you the once I put in the Rocket Raccoon as well as the magic, then my power is actually still the same. This power here, this power is here still the same, and although it's increased by 61.5%, but you still need to validate all these things. So how do I usually validate is that I will just pick a target and just shoot a beam to it. And like shoot a beam to it and see what kind of range I'm getting. Now don't shoot it too often though. By the way, you see all this proc here. If you keep shooting, this number will getting bigger and bigger and become like you can't really see the result of it. So what I've done in my spreadsheet is that I look at the tooltip and say, if I'm going to trust a tooltip, what kind of number do I expect? A low crit, high crit, low brutal, high brutal, right? So these are the number I would expect, and I'll see. Okay, I do one swarm. And then after that, I say, is it within this range? After I wait until all the buff is being removed, then I do another one. Is it within the range? And I realize that it's not within the range, of course. So the tooltip, there's an error. But then I need to manually buff it. But do bear in mind that when you manually buff it, I have to first of all knows what my energy damage overall is. So how do I get this number up? It is the damage rating plus the energy base plus the energy damage rating plus the range base plus the range damage rating will give me the overall buff to all my damage energy damage, which is one of the video, by the way. I've talked about how to calculate all these things. And then after that, you add the 59% or 62.5%, whichever that we have, you have manually buff this power. And after that, you observe again, because never trust yourself. Sometimes you may make mistake. I do too. And after that, you see, oh yeah, it does fall into this range, and I can comfortably kind of like trust that my calculation works. So with that in mind, that is the baseline that I have. And I also do a little bit of like other calculation here for Trident as well, but never mind. That's so I've done that for baseline. Then after that, I go into the 6%. So what I've done is that I turn on the hero synergy for 4 for Winter Soldier. That gave me the overall 6% across the power. And now I take down all the numbers again, and I sort of like look into the gain in terms of the against the baseline. Of course, there's a gain to it. My gain is about 14,000. Like I said, don't get into percentage because you can't compare apple to apple. You have to look at the absolute gain of it. And after that, I say, okay, 6% damage. What is my percentage gain on the baseline? So I got that, and after that I reset the Thor and the and the Winter Soldier, and I picked Magic and Rocket Raccoon as the hero synergy. I run through all numbers again, and at the end I got this number here. So I can sort of like worked out what my percentage is. This one divided by 10, so it's 960. All right, so that is all it is when I compare. Then that's how I compare that. Okay, so this one is equals to this one divided by say 10%. All right, divided by 10. Right. So that is the number. So how do I come out with the? It's already there. It's just below. So how do I come out with the 2 point something? Trade-off is this number divided. This number divided by that number is 2.56, which is what the trade-off is. That is where the point whereby they will become equal. Should they compare the apple to apple wise? All right. So then I take it further. One step further is that what if I manually boost my my crit damage rating to see at which point I will increase the same as the summon ally damage. So I know my summon ally damage is, if you remember this one, is a 9608. So then I say, at what point will I buff this one into 9608 or thereabout? Then it's about 480 damage rating, crit damage rating, which is normalized to to about 80% because of the summon air damage that we have there. All right, so that's one thing, and then after that I'm doing for the crit as well, and so on and so forth. So and the yeah, I mean that's the journey I've taken in order to show you guys what the how I do all this comparison. But at the end of the day, I mean sometimes you just want to play without too much about crunching a number. So let me do the job. I'm here to do the heavy lifting, and you play the game. So for Ultron, what I would do is I'll probably stick with all my gears and so on. I'll just use the Omega system as well as hero synergy to just like magic to toggle between the two build. And but for raid, I'll just go for full range. For example, using my existing gear. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, you can put all the questions below, and I'll try my best to answer. And thank you very much for watching. Check out the link below. Really, there's a lot more guys for you to watch. See you next time. Goodbye.